Strangers, Quince is here to help make holiday shopping easy and affordable this year. Who doesn't love a cozy, super soft Mongolian cashmere sweater? Quince has beautiful colors and styles for everyone on your list. Or maybe they're into denim. Quince has jeans from skinny to wide, bell-bottom to boot cut. Silk tops and skirts for when you need to look put together. Cashmere beanies and scarves and down jackets that actually keep you warm. Everything at Quince has a price that won't make you panic. We're talking way less than other brands. By working directly with trusted factories that maintain high standards for both craftsmanship and ethical practices, and by cutting out the middlemen and markups, Quince is able to pass those savings straight to you. I have 3 Mongolian cashmere crew sweaters, a cashmere cardigan, and a beanie. Not to mention my staple black t-shirts that have become the foundation of pretty much all my outfits. Find gifts so good you'll want to keep them with Quince. Go to quince.com/strange for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/strange to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/strange. Hey strangers, just a reminder, you can get Strange and Unexplained early and ad-free for less than $5 a month over at grabbagcollab.com. And right now you can get 20% off your first year with code EARLYBIRD20. There's so much great content at Grabbag Collab and it's all ad-free. Use code EARLYBIRD20 for 20% off a whole year of early and ad-free content at grabbagcollab.com. That's GRABBAGCOLLAB.com. When children disappear, where do our minds go first? Who's to blame and why? How does the past tinge our perceptions of people today? Is having an obvious culprit easier than having none at all? When it comes to the topic of the safety of our kids, the head and heart can tend to battle it out in pursuit of finding out how an average day could go so very wrong. Welcome to Strange and Unexplained with me, Daisy Egan. I have put off covering this case for a while now because it's so awful. And warning up front, if you have trouble with accounts of violence toward children, please take care while listening. I mean, we should all have trouble with accounts of violence toward children. If you're someone who's like, fuck yeah, about violence toward children, something is very, very wrong with you, and you should get some help. But also, we're fans of true crime, so I guess the same could be said for all of us. Violence toward anyone is awful, of course, and here I am, telling you the stories, and here you are, tuning in to hear them. I don't know what it is about these stories that keeps us coming back. I suppose part of it is just morbid curiosity, but I think maybe there's a feeling of superiority that comes with listening to just how depraved people can be and telling ourselves, well, at least I'm not like that. There's also the idea that knowledge is power. We tell ourselves the more we know about the depths people can sink to, the better prepared we might be if we find ourselves face to face with one of those depraved people. My husband thinks I have a grim view of humanity, not just because of all the true crime I consume, but all the dystopian fiction too. But let me tell you, I'm pretty sure that when the zombie apocalypse happens, I will be an expert on how to survive. Of course, I'm not sure I'll want to survive because of my already grim view of humanity, plus zombies. And yes, I am stalling getting into the story. Every time I see a kid out on their bike, I have to stop myself from worrying that they're going to be kidnapped. I know the chances of that are very slim, but true crime media would have you believe that starting in the 1970s, practically any kid who got on a bicycle never came home. Whatever confluence of events took place in the 70s that either seemingly suddenly had kids getting snatched left and right, or just suddenly had the media paying attention to something that had been happening all along, we all started to believe that child snatchers were lurking in every cornfield and behind every 7-Eleven dumpster. And of course, even one child kidnapped is too many children kidnapped, but the truth is, stranger abduction is very rare. A double abduction is even more rare. But 3 double abductions happening within a few 100-mile radius with one very good suspect, and the case is still unsolved? Anyone who knew Lyric Cook and Elizabeth Collins would have said they were more like sisters than cousins. Lyric, 10, and Elizabeth, 8, grew up doing practically everything together. Lyric was described as, quote, a very special young lady. She was an infectious joy to be around with a smile that radiated with love. She had a heart of compassion for her family and her friends. Lyric enjoyed bowling, cheerleading, and gymnastics. Lyric loved to be outside playing, snow, rain, or shine. Most seen was Lyric's unconditional love for her family and her special love for her brother Dylan. Her desire to have fun within those loving relationships was seen while going to church, sharing devotions with her parents in the morning, and card games with her grandmother in the afternoons, end quote. And Elizabeth was, quote, a bubbly little person with the best smile who loved what life had to give and all it had to offer. Elizabeth enjoyed dressing up and getting her nails and hair done. She loved singing, riding her bike, playing softball and hockey. She had a big heart and a great love for animals. Elizabeth also loved playing with her siblings and ordering them around. She enjoyed going on vacations and had traveled to many places. Many times were treasured as a family lying in bed eating popcorn and watching movies, end quote. These, according to the girls' obituaries. On July 13th, 2012, sometime between noon and 12:15, the girls asked their grandma Wilma if they could go out and ride their bikes. The family lived in Evansdale, Iowa, a sleepy, picturesque middle America town with a population of fewer than 5,000 people, and beautiful walks along the Cedar River. The city's website boasts it is, quote, a city of good neighbors. Wilma was watching the girls for the day. Elizabeth's dad, Drew, and Lyric's mom, Misty, were at work. Elizabeth's mom, Heather, was out running errands. When Misty got off work at 1 p.m., she got a call from Wilma telling her the girls weren't back yet. I don't know if Wilma was worried that the girls hadn't returned yet or if it was just casual information, but she did ask Misty if she'd heard from Lyric. Heather got home sometime after 1 and said she immediately felt like something was wrong. Drew, on the other hand, who got home from work shortly after Heather had arrived, figured the girls had probably just lost track of time. But Lyric had a cell phone, so I have to imagine they tried calling her, to no avail. Listen, I once lost sight of my kid for about 10 seconds, and my butt went up into my stomach. I cannot begin to imagine the physical and mental panic this family was going through. Heather later said, quote, it's just horrific. I was just praying that someone would just drop them off, you know? End quote. At this point, Heather and Wilma drove around looking for the girls, but by 2:42, with no word from the girls, they went to the Evansdale police station and reported the girls missing. The response was swift and thorough. Investigators combed the neighborhood and reached out to the county sheriff and state police and other law enforcement agencies, including the Black Hawk County Sheriff's Department, Waterloo and Cedar Falls Police Department, and the Iowa Department of Criminal Investigation to assist in the search. At about 4 p.m., police found a pair of bikes by a gated entrance to an overflow area of Meyer Lake. They brought Drew to identify the bikes, and he confirmed they were Lyric and Elizabeth's. Drew then assisted in the search and found Elizabeth's purse with her cell phone inside it. He said it looked like someone had dumped it on the other side of a fence. The fire department came and dragged the lake. Divers were sent into the lake to search, and infrared scanners were deployed from the sky. Hundreds of locals joined in the search on foot and ATV. By 10 p.m., having found nothing more than the girls' bikes and Elizabeth's purse, the search was called off. In an HBO Max documentary about the case, both Misty and Heather express incredulity that the search was called off. Misty said, quote, "What do you mean that's it? They went missing today. Why does anyone need to go home and go to sleep tonight?" End quote. But the next day, June 14th, the FBI had arrived and the case had become national news. Strangers, I don't want to gross you out, but did you know the traditional sheets on your bed are a germ factory? It's true. Regular sheets can harbor more germs than a toilet seat. I don't know about you, but the last thing I want to do at the end of a long day is wrap myself up in a toilet seat. Miracle Made sheets are made with silver-infused fabric with technology inspired by NASA that helps prevent 99.9% of bacteria growth. So you can wrap yourself in temperature-regulating, super soft, luxurious sheets that don't cost an arm and a leg and aren't covered in germs. Miracle Made sheets stay cleaner and fresher up to 3 times longer than regular sheets. That means fewer odors, fewer wash cycles, and way less laundry. Plus, they're kinder to your skin. All that hidden bacteria in regular sheets, it can clog your pores and cause breakouts. Miracle Made's antibacterial design helps you sleep cleaner and clearer night after night. Upgrade your sleep or give the gift of better rest. Go to trymiracle.com/strange to try Miracle Made sheets today. You'll save over 40%. And when you use promo code STRANGE, you'll get an extra 20% off plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift. And with a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. That's trymiracle.com/strange, code STRANGE at checkout. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. Waterloo Police Chief Dan Trekla began combing through the local sex offender registry, and the FBI checked phone records to corroborate alibis. CCTV footage from local businesses only yielded one clue. The girls could be seen riding past a local auction house near the Collins home around noon on the day they went missing. During canvassing, several witnesses said they saw the girls or thought maybe they'd seen the girls between 11:30 and 12:40. A neighbor, Robert Carpenter, was out doing yard work the day the girls went missing and told police he saw them ride by. He said they waved and said hi, and he was pretty sure that was around noon. Merville Howard, a truck driver who knew the family, said he saw the girls pushing their bikes toward Meyer Lake sometime between 12:30 and 12:40. He would later say he can't forgive himself for not stopping to check on the girls. Similarly, another local woman said she saw a man standing by a no outlet sign with a girl on his shoulder and another girl with him. She said it looked like the girl on his shoulder was fighting him. At the time, she said it just looked like a dad hoisting a reluctant kid on his shoulder. She, too, said she feels awful she didn't stop to see if they were okay. And I get it. If you think you had a brush with something awful, of course you're going to replay the events in your mind and think of ways you could have made a difference. But why would Howard have randomly stopped to check on the girls? They weren't doing anything out of the ordinary. And Lord knows if he had stopped to check on them and told police he'd done this, he would have absolutely been suspected of abducting them. And as for the woman who thinks she might have seen the girls with their abductor, maybe she did, but how often have you seen a parent struggling with a tantruming kid in public? And frankly, most parents don't cotton too well to strangers interfering, so I totally get why she didn't stop to see if everything was all right. Other locals reported seeing a boxy, older model white SUV in various places along the girls' route, including near where their bikes were eventually found. By July 16th, after part of Meyer Lake had been drained and bloodhounds failed to alert to the area, Evansdale police were relatively certain the girls were not there. Of course, relatively certain, I would imagine, means absolutely nothing to parents whose child is missing. And I can't imagine the turmoil of waiting for a lake to be drained to find out if your child is dead at the bottom of it. Like, any outcome in that scenario is awful. And while Heather and Drew were experiencing their turmoil, Lyric's parents, Dan and Misty, were grappling with the horror of a missing child with the added insult of being treated like criminals. Dan and Misty had criminal records for drug-related offenses. Misty had been arrested when Lyric was just a year and a half old and spent the next few years in prison. Misty was at work when the girls went missing, which of course doesn't mean that she couldn't have colluded with someone to kidnap the girls, but she didn't. There wouldn't have been any reason for it. Dan had only just bonded out of jail a month before the girls went missing. He had been held while awaiting trial on charges of making meth and selling pot. The day before Lyric and Elizabeth disappeared, Dan had been offered a plea deal of 30 years. Listen, I'm no cog in the wheel of our so-called criminal justice system, but if the plea deal was for 30 years, what the hell was the original sentence? More than 30 years for making meth and selling pot? Was he also murdering people? Like, what in the Sam hell is going on here? Anyway, Dan did not take the plea deal because it would have meant going directly to jail without passing go and getting to say goodbye to his family. Again, what? Like, why? I'm sure someone thought there was a good reason for this, but I can't think of why someone shouldn't be able to have a chance to say goodbye to their loved ones before going off to prison for 30 years. I thought prosecutors wanted people to take plea deals. Why not agree to accompany him home to say goodbye to his family? Turned out passing on the plea deal was the right choice, if only because had he not been able to see Lyric that day, he may have never seen her again. But investigators wondered if Dan had colluded with someone to kidnap the girls in order to gain sympathy and get a better plea deal. Is everyone okay? I mean, I know everyone is decidedly not okay, but do people actually do shit like this? I mean, I guess I know people actually do shit like this, but seriously? Colluding to kidnap your own daughter and niece so people will feel bad for you and give you less jail time? What the actual fuck? I don't think Dan did this, but the fact that it even entered anyone's mind as a possibility is just terrifying. Misty and Dan were both subjected to polygraphs, which both came back inconclusive, for whatever that's worth, which frankly isn't much. Plus, Dan admitted he was smoking pot at the time, so that would have affected his results. After the inconclusive polygraphs, both Dan and Misty stopped cooperating with the investigation. Misty said she was overwhelmed and shut down, and the police apparently didn't think that was an acceptable response to her kid being missing. Listen, if anything were to happen to Monty, the police would have to come into my home and interview me from my bed, or someone would have to wheel me into the station on a gurney. To me, being overwhelmed and shutting down after your child has gone missing is a perfectly reasonable response. Of course, Misty had had a history with the police, so this colored all their interactions going both ways. She was mistrustful of them, and they were mistrustful of her. It's a lot of dynamics to navigate, even in the best of circumstances, and there is no best of circumstances at all here. In the HBO Max documentary on the case, Misty alleged that the police even showed up at her house in the middle of the night, banging on her door, yelling that they knew she killed Lyric even though she meant to be a good mother. It's worth noting that this incident doesn't show up in any other source, though I can't imagine that if she wasn't cooperating with the investigation at the time, she was running around talking to the media. And something tells me the police didn't self-report this incident to the media. Last night, we harassed a grieving mother, accusing her of killing her own child, even though we all know she's innocent until proven guilty. Misty and Dan's withdrawal from the investigation didn't do them any favors with Heather and Drew either. Heather said that while she didn't think her sister had anything to do with the girl's disappearance, she had never liked Dan and said it was easier to believe he might be involved. But it's not like Misty and Dan had each other's backs either. Dan posited that because Misty had been a police informant in the past, the girl's abduction could have been someone retaliating against her. Yikes, bro. Like, I get that maybe you guys didn't have a great relationship, but this is the mother of your child, you know? I'm sure he knows her much better than I do, but sheesh. You better be sure about something like this before you go tossing around your theories, Professor Holmes. Eventually, both Dan and Misty took another polygraph, which they both passed. Again, for what it's worth, which isn't much. By mid-October, police had stopped giving the family daily briefings on the investigation, probably because they weren't making much headway. On November 14th, Heather and Drew released this letter to the press. Quote, "To whom it may concern, we would use your name, but we don't know who you are. Or maybe we do? Maybe you are someone who knows the girls. Maybe you are someone who just acted upon an impulse. Maybe you planned to take them. We don't know because we don't know who you are. But we can sort of imagine that you must not have had the things you needed to grow up feeling safe and loved. Because only someone who hurts inside would hurt another person and their family. We have all heard the saying, hurt people hurt people. We believe that is true. We are so sorry for whatever happened to you when you were growing up. Certainly all children do not receive all the love and care they deserve. Some are even abused by those who are supposed to have taken care of them. When that happens, it is very wrong. Taking the girls from us has caused much pain. Pain for them, pain for us and our families. Since the time you took them, maybe you've wondered more than a few times how you could ever make it right. How to be a hero, not a monster. Things probably look pretty hopeless for a good outcome. We want you to know that we are praying for you to do the right thing. By releasing the girls, everyone wins. Even you, the person who took them. Imagine how it will feel to have everyone remember that you were the one person in all the missing children cases, the one person who cared enough to let the girls go. You will not be remembered as the one who took the girls, but as the one who let them come home. Our lives have not been the same since July 13th. Please let our girls come home to us. Do the right thing. Be a hero. Sincerely, Drew and Heather Collins." End quote. Listen, if I were in their situation, I would have probably said the same. And then, if by some miracle the person came forward, with or without my kid, I would then go on to stalk and kill them. Very slowly, with rusty implements. Strangers, apparently some of you like to eat right, whatever that means, and holidays can be challenging on your digestive system. Me? I am a chaos monster who likes to keep their digestive system in constant suspense. What's coming? A full day of forgetting to eat and then going ham on a pizza? Or a day that includes balanced protein and vegetables? No one knows! For me, supporting my gut with Ritual Plus Symbiotic helps protect me from myself. For those of you who usually eat right and are challenged on holidays, you might find the powerhouse of clinically studied pre, pro, and postbiotics in Ritual Plus Symbiotic just the thing for keeping your system balanced when your diet may slip. Ritual Symbiotic Plus is designed with a delayed-release capsule to help reach the colon, not the stomach, an ideal place for probiotics to survive and grow. I love that they're vegan-friendly and formulated without GMOs, major allergens, animal products, shady fillers, and artificial colors. Plus, it's HSA and FSA eligible with a seamless checkout experience so you can save when you shop with pre-tax dollars. So get your gut going. Support a balanced gut microbiome with Ritual Symbiotic Plus. My listeners get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/strange. That's ritual.com/strange for 25% off your first month. And then on December 5th, about 5 months after Lyric and Elizabeth went missing, Amanda Miller and Kevin Dramstad were out hunting in Seven Bridges Wildlife Area, a very isolated area located about 20 miles from Evansdale. It was the last day of hunting season. The weather was unusually warm for that time of year, and whether or not there had been any snow yet that season, there was no snow on the ground. The pair were about to call it a day when Kevin decided to just keep going a little farther. And that was when he spotted some pink fabric. When he pulled the fabric away, Kevin found 2 small skulls and a shoe. Looking around now, Kevin and Amanda suddenly noticed more and more human remains. That these two would come across these remains on the last day of hunting season so far out in a really remote part of the woods with weather conditions needing to be exactly perfect is so unlikely it almost makes one believe in divine intervention. But then one remembers that if there were a divine being, these girls wouldn't have gone missing in the first place. The area is so remote, in fact, that it's known as a spot where people dump unwanted or incriminating evidence, weapons, and the like. One investigator said it was so far removed from people that no one would hear anyone screaming in there. Investigators responded to the 911 call immediately and, given all the circumstances, determined that the remains belonged to Elizabeth Collins and Lyric Cook. Because the girls' shoes were found with their remains, investigators believed they walked there of their own volition, which, of course, is not to say they walked there of their own free will. The girls' clothing was found at the site as well. The next order of business was to let the parents know. Drew said he received a call from his pastor telling him he needed to go down to City Hall. In an interview for a local news station, Drew said, quote, "When they called and said go there, I was really worried. And then I got to the City Hall and Chief Trelka was waiting for me. I just waited for everybody to show up, and family started showing up. When I saw Police Chief Kent, I knew, just on his face. He just had this really grim look on his face. So I pretty much knew." End quote. Drew confirmed that the belongings found near the remains were those of his daughter and niece. In the interview, he said, quote, "I think kind of after that, I pretty much shut down. I didn't really plan any of the funeral. I pretty much just let Heather do that. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't do anything." End quote. Lyric's dad, Dan, refused to even go down to City Hall to hear the news, fearing the worst. His mother was the one to let him know his daughter's remains had been found. Given the state of the girls' remains, it's impossible to know what they endured during their awful ordeal, but investigators believe they were killed within 24 hours of being taken, and it seems they withheld revealing the cause of death, which leads one to believe they know how the girls were killed, but don't want the public to know. And that's about where the case stood for a long time. At the very least, the families were able to bury their daughters, but the investigation stalled out. Any suspects the police unearthed were weak, to say the least. Thankfully, Misty and Dan had both been cleared. She had been at work, which was a pretty solid alibi, and despite Dan's armchair quarterbacking that it may have been her past as a police informant that was to blame, police could find no evidence corroborating that. As for Dan, I can only assume he was wearing an ankle monitor or something, as he had still been awaiting trial on drug charges. There was Jeff Altmaier, a real class act, who liked to entice little girls into his van, promising them money. He would touch his victims and make them touch him. His final potential victim was a 6-year-old girl who, when offered the money, was like, "Not today, Bob," and ran and told her mom. Altmaier was arrested in 2016 and ultimately ended up getting a life sentence for the earlier kidnapping of a 12-year-old girl. He had apparently enticed her into his van, molested her, and then let her go when she asked to be let go. As both Drew and Dan point out in the HBO documentary Taken Together, Who Killed Lyric and Elizabeth, this behavior, while depraved and disgusting, is not the behavior of a man who murdered 2 little girls. Generally, behavior escalates. Generally, one doesn't go from double homicide to molesting and releasing. In 2018, a woman named Teresa Garlman, who'd been spending time in an outpatient mental health facility, had been telling people she knew who killed Elizabeth and Lyric, and had a 6-page letter from the killers as proof. On May 4th of that year, Teresa died by suicide on train tracks about 54 miles away from Evansdale. I'm going to spare you the rest of the details about it because it's fucking awful. You can Google it if you need to, but don't. Upon Teresa's death, police searched her home and apparently found a box of evidence which included a letter, but that letter, for some reason, doesn't come up in any source besides the HBO documentary, and its contents have never been released. But 5 years before all that, and less than a year after Elizabeth and Lyric were murdered, on May 20th, 2013, 15-year-old Kathleen Shepard and 12-year-old Desi Hughes had just stepped off the school bus together when a man pulled up alongside them in a red truck, asking for help mowing lawns. His name was Michael, he said. He would pay them, he said. The girls were interested, but said they had to ask their parents for permission first. Michael offered to drive them home, and the girls accepted. Later, Desi would say she knew something was off pretty quickly when the man began driving weirdly, avoiding main roads and highways. Desi said the man drove them to a hog confinement and told them the mowers were inside. Listen, I can hear some of you who have never been put in a weird situation going, why on earth did they go inside? And here's the thing. When you are a young woman, or really just a woman, sometimes men ask you to do things that you know aren't right. And there's a calculus that goes on inside your head. It's called girl math, in which the threat of saying yes and doing the dangerous thing is weighed against the threat of saying no and having a possibly worse or more dangerous thing happen to you. As in, why did you have sex with him? Because I was worried he would kill me if I didn't. Once inside, Michael pulled out a gun and ordered the girls to lie down, at which time he zip-tied their ankles and wrists. Kathleen began begging him to let them go, to which Michael responded by apparently getting angry and, according to Desi, dragging Kathleen around a corner and out of sight. Desi heard Kathleen scream, and then everything went quiet. She then gathered her faculties and wriggled her arms to the front, got up, and took off running. Desi ran into the woods and hid. She heard Michael pursuing her in his truck. She ran through the woods until she found a house where the owner, a farmer named Patrick Fairchild, saw her running up, bloody and screaming. They called the police, and Desi was able to give enough details that Fairchild identified a hog confinement as the likely location she'd been taken to. When police arrived, they figured out the suspect was most likely 42-year-old Michael Klunder, the son-in-law of the hog farm's owner. When they showed Desi his picture, she confirmed he was the man who took her and her friend. While police tried to locate Klunder, his wife told them she'd received a text from him that read, "I'm so sorry, I love you." Klunder's father-in-law found Klunder in one of his buildings. He had hung himself, but not before stabbing and killing Kathleen and putting her body in the Des Moines River, where fishermen found her 18 days later. Strangers, we've had a rough couple of weeks here in the Egan Bloom household. All three of us have been sick. The house is a mess, and no one has the energy to cook. Thank God we've got our Tovala meals. I'm telling you, Tovala has not disappointed one single time. The meals are so easy to prepare, and they are consistently delicious. It's like having a personal chef. With the Tovala Smart Oven, you just scan in your recipe card and Tovala cooks everything perfectly. I don't know how they do it, but each time everything is cooked just right. There's so much less waste than with other meal plans. And you can go from prep to eating in less than half an hour. With Tovala, you can eat better without putting in a ton of effort. There are high-protein options, calorie-smart options, gluten-free options, comfort food, whatever you're into. With Tovala, you can finally remove dinner from your to-do list. For a limited time, because you are a strange and unexplained listener, you can save up to $300 on the Tovala Smart Oven when you order meals 6 or more times by heading to tovala.com/strange and use my code STRANGE. That's up to $300 off when you head to tovala.com/strange and use promo code STRANGE. One last time, that's TOVALA.com, and make sure you use my promo code STRANGE for up to $300 off the Tovala Smart Oven. Remember, with Tovala, dinner is taken care of. This was not Klunder's first run-in with the law. Here's what you need to know about Michael Klunder. Klunder was arrested for the first time on November 15, 1986, when he was about 15 years old for brutally physically assaulting a 15-year-old girl. He then bounced between various juvenile detention and mental health centers. He was released in February 1988 and moved in with his father in Mason City, Iowa. On February 22, 1989, about a year after his release, he showed up at a coworker's home asking to use her phone because his car stalled. She agreed to give him a ride home. As she was walking to her car, he attacked her and strangled her, leaving her with visible injuries. He was charged for this assault along with a separate burglary charge. He was sentenced to 5 years and was ultimately released in February 1991. On December 15, 1991, he pulled over a 21-year-old woman on Highway 18. He told her he flagged her over because she had a broken taillight, and when she went to check, he attacked her, assaulted her, and abducted her. Fortunately, a passing driver witnessed this and began following Klunder, and Klunder pushed the woman from his vehicle and drove off. Gals, for your protection, don't ever pull over for an unmarked vehicle. If you're not sure if the person trying to pull you over is law enforcement, drive to the nearest precinct and go inside. Obviously, I'm not victim blaming. This tactic wasn't well known back then, and even if it was, one can never blame someone for thinking they're following law enforcement orders. Anyway, the next day, Klunder lost his job and proceeded to abduct 2 3-year-old girls. He choked one of the toddlers before leaving them both in a dumpster in a different town. He went on the run and was arrested on Christmas Eve for kidnapping the toddlers. Both girls, thankfully, survived. He was identified as a suspect in the case in which he snatched the woman off the road after flagging her for the broken taillight, and by September 1992, he had been convicted of kidnapping and assaulting the woman and took a plea agreement for kidnapping the toddlers and was sentenced to 40 years total for these crimes. That would have meant he would have been in jail until 2032. But he was released from prison in February 2011 for good behavior. Listen, I have complicated feelings about our prison system. In the most basic of terms, I don't think it actually serves any community good except for getting people off the street who may commit more crimes. However, I think proper community investment and a better social system in general would prevent a lot of our need for prisons. But that's not where we are as a society, and so a man who had several violent crimes on his record, including assaulting babies, was let go more than 20 years before his sentence was up. And not for nothing, but his own wife took him to court before he was even released for threatening her. She also filed a restraining order for her and her child against him. So Klunder, who had previously abducted 2 3-year-olds simultaneously, was released in February 2011 and lived in Stratford, Iowa, where he was on parole. Lyric and Elizabeth were abducted and killed about 17 months later, about an hour and a half away, in Evansdale, Iowa. And then, less than a year after that, Klunder abducted Kathleen Shepard and Desi Hughes. The only reason he was caught was because Desi got away. The vast majority of children who go missing are either taken by someone they know and trust or have run away of their own volition. Incidentally, many of those kids return, but their return isn't noted in any missing children database. So, the statistics make it look like a lot more children disappear each year than actually do. Double abductions are even more uncommon. According to the HBO documentary, there were only 16 double abductions between 1970 and 2012, with Lyric and Elizabeth's abduction being the 16th. Kathleen and Desi's abduction less than a year after Lyric and Elizabeth's made 17. Also, the 2 toddlers Klunder had abducted back in the 90s were in Charles City, Iowa. 3 double abductions within a 300-mile radius of each other within one state. That accounts for 15% of all double abductions in a state that makes up about 1% of the population of the country. And there has not been another double abduction/homicide since Kathleen and Desi in 2013 when Klunder killed himself. But for some reason, police don't think Klunder abducted and murdered Lyric and Elizabeth. Police say that cell phone and debit and credit card records don't put Klunder in Evansdale on the day Lyric and Elizabeth went missing. Listen, I'm no FBI investigator, but cell phone and debit and credit card records don't put Klunder's cell phone, debit, or credit cards in Evansdale on the day the girls went missing. Klunder himself could have easily been in Evansdale without his stuff. And in 2012, we were still using cash enough that he might not have needed a card. He was on parole, which meant he had to tell his PO anytime he planned on traveling outside the county. So what if he wanted to, visit some friends in another county but didn't want to tell his PO about it? I'm glad you asked, because it turns out this information stuck with Dylan Sayers, who made the HBO documentary Taken Together, Who Killed Lyric and Elizabeth. Dylan took it upon himself to see if Klunder might have had any ties to Evansdale, and wouldn't you know it, 2 guys he served time with were living in Evansdale in 2012, one of whom, Troy Conkling, had been convicted of sexual assault of an adult woman and is still a Tier 3 registered sex offender. The other one was Chris Ricketts, with whom Drew, Elizabeth's dad, had gone to high school. Using that connection, Drew reached out to Chris to ask if it was possible that Klunder may have been visiting him and Troy around the time his daughter and niece were abducted and killed. Chris said yes, he believed that was the case, and that Klunder wouldn't have brought his cell phone on the trip because that would have required getting permission from his PO. Troy, for his part, denied the visit from Klunder ever happened, but conceded that he thought Klunder was guilty because he was a, quote, fucking weirdo. He also intimated that Klunder might have had an accomplice because, in his words, there's a lot of weirdos out there. Pot, meet kettle. These days, the guy in charge of the case is Special Agent Scott Rieger with the Iowa Department of Criminal Investigations. In an interview with KCRG from 2022, Special Agent Rieger said that Klunder had been a person of interest in the case, but was pretty cagey about what information they had, and he pretty much wouldn't confirm or deny much of anything. It seems to me, from the comfort of my own home, with only bits and pieces of information, that Klunder is the obvious suspect. Like, if this were a Netflix series, we'd all be yelling at the screen that it's that fucking guy. But what do investigators know that they're not telling us? Do you know how much DA offices love to close cold cases? It looks so good when they're running for re-election to be like, look, I solved that case. I put that monster behind bars. I brought some closure to these families. So unless I'm missing something, which, trust me, I do frequently, they must have enough information pointing to someone else, or at least pointing to not Klunder, that they can't just say it was Klunder and wrap the case up with a bow and call it a win. Otherwise, they would have taken the dunk by now. The guy is dead. He can't say one way or the other. What would be stopping investigators from just saying he did it and walking away, other than compelling evidence to the contrary? They're not just going to be like, tee-hee-hee, let's draw this out for fun. They've put far more innocent people away with far less evidence. Strangers, our old friends Lumi Gummies are back. I have gotten consistently great feedback from listeners who tried Lumi. Whether you're looking for something to help you focus, like the Sativa Orange Cream Cookies gummies, or you're looking for a better night's sleep with the Plum Berry Runts, just one 5-milligram gummy an hour before bed, and this indica treat sends you straight to Dreamsville, and you wake up super well rested and without any grogginess. Feeling stressed? The Hybrid Strawberry Cookies gummy helps you unhook and unwind. Consistent, mellow, and super delicious. Lumi gummies are specifically designed to make you feel good, not stoned. Whether you're looking for an end-of-day de-stressor, a midday mood boost, or help getting the best sleep ever, Lumi Gummies has a strain that's right for you. Lumi Gummies are available nationwide. Go to lumigummies.com, that's L-U-M-I, gummies.com, and use code STRANGE for 30% off your order. Again, that's L-U-M-I, gummies.com, code STRANGE. lumigummies.com, code STRANGE. It seems to me that even Drew thinks the killer is still out there, at least as of an interview he gave for a local news outlet in 2022. He said he had a few people on the list who make good sense. Meanwhile, the interviewer asked Special Agent Rieger why this case was so difficult to solve, and the guy seemed genuinely stumped. He took a big old pause, and then he said, "That's a good question," but then didn't seem to have an answer. Girl, did no one prep you for this interview? It's the 10-year anniversary of arguably the biggest unsolved case in your area, and you don't have an answer for why is this case so difficult to solve? I am an idiot, and even I know how to answer that question. There were so few clues left behind. Whoever did it apparently either told no one or has threatened people enough that no one will talk. Whoever did it is dead, or in another country, or in jail for another crime. There's just not enough evidence. The good news, if there is any, I guess, is that forensic science has advanced in the more than 13 years since Elizabeth and Lyric were murdered, and the possibility of some new technology unearthing a heretofore unseen clue is good. DNA distraction is getting more and more sophisticated. Eventually, something will show itself and lead to a definitive answer. But, of course, as with any crime of this nature, the ripple effects are still being felt. Drew and Heather ended up divorcing. Drew himself admitted he crumpled under the weight of the loss and was unable to be there for his wife and kids, though he seems to have been able to figure out how to be there for other survivors of tragedy, which is heartening. And it does seem like he and Heather are at least amicable. Honestly, I don't know how parents survive this kind of thing at all. Misty and Dan have continued to have their own personal struggles and run-ins with the law, but as far as I can tell, no one thinks they had anything to do with the murder of their daughter and niece. Listen, any parent who can go through this kind of loss and not come out completely shattered on the other side of it should be commended. I have often talked of how inept I think I would be in the face of a loss like this. Just last night, my husband and son were more than an hour late coming home, and I was already planning out the note I would have to leave before extricating myself from this mortal coil. That is not to make light of suicide. That is to say, I don't think I would be able to survive a loss like that. So anyone who does and keeps going is a hero to me. Elizabeth and Lyric's story, which is really Heather, Drew, Misty, and Dan's as well, is an unfortunate case study in assuming the worst when the worst has already happened. What I mean by this is that, of course, the investigation started with all four of them, the parents. This is standard, but it also burnt time as the clock ticked on the search for Elizabeth and Lyric. Before anything else, the town of Evansdale just had to crop up old judgments of past convictions, battles with the criminal justice system, and the age-old high crime of being imperfect parents. It sounds like, in the face of the immediate trauma of having both their daughters disappear on the same day, all the loved ones of Lyric and Elizabeth did what they could to help find clarity as to what happened, taking space and time where they needed in order to keep going. That's an act of love, not bad parenting. I wish all victims like Lyric and Elizabeth had the strength and support of their people at their back, regardless of their pasts and the bad luck of tragedy. Because the story is tragic. There's no other way around it. But I give my flowers to those who believed in a different ending and fought as long and hard as possible in search of it. Next time on Strange and Unexplained. On a freezing cold night in October 1984, 4 unlikely strangers survived a plane crash and spent a harrowing night on a Canadian mountaintop fighting for their lives. It was the ultimate trauma bond and would change all their lives forever. The crash of Wapiti Airlines Flight 402. Strange and Unexplained is a production of Three Goose Entertainment and Grab Bag Collab. This episode was written by me, Daisy Egan, with research by Joe Gordette. Editorial help by Becca DiGregorio. That's right, they're back, baby! Audio engineering and design by the divine Jeff Devine. Music by Epidemic and Blue Dot Sessions. For early and ad-free episodes of Strange and Unexplained, as well as my 2 other podcasts, and Amber Hunt's Crimes of the Centuries, and everything else GrabBag has to offer, just head to grabbagcollab.com to subscribe. If you have an idea for an episode or want to submit a question for an Ask Me Anything episode, head to strangeandunexplainedpod.com and fill out the contact form. I will write back. Eventually. I need an assistant. You can follow me on social media at Daisy Egan or follow the show at SNU Pod and GrabBag Collab. Stay strange.